Okay, so hello everyone, welcome to episode 5, I believe this is, of AI and Oats, which is my daily AI show where I answer questions about AI from the internet. And normally I eat a bowl of porridge, hence the name, but today I don't have any porridge, so it's going to be energy drinks instead. Well, if you're new, which in all likelihood you probably are, welcome. My name's Alistair. This is my YouTube channel where I teach people about using Claude Code and Codex for knowledge work and business use cases. But I also run an AI consulting and training business called Dux, and I have a school community where I share all of my Claude Code and Codex skills and systems and all my AI knowledge. So if you'd like to join the school community, the link is in the description, and if you'd like to work with me directly and see how I can help you find use cases for AI in your business or help coach you through setting up your own Claude Code or Codex AI operating system, please check out the other link in the description. Anyway, that is the preliminaries out of the way. Let's jump into the questions. So basically the way this works is during the day I have Codex searching the web for interesting questions about AI on forums and that sort of thing, or interesting news articles, and then it puts together this document for me, and then I come home and just answer them. But more often than not I end up going off on some unrelated tangent and just rambling about something cool with AI, or something I think is cool at least. In an ideal world we would have questions on our YouTube channel in the comments that I could answer, but we are still currently too small to have anyone commenting. So if you did comment, there is a pretty much 100% guarantee I'd answer your question, so there's your incentive to comment. Anyway, anyone else exhausted by Claude's made up phrases and overdense sentences? Okay, so I often get Claude or Codex to make a lot of slide decks like the one you're seeing now, slide decks or websites, and usually with a website I'm pretty careful about the copy that goes into it, and even with a slide deck I'm pretty careful about the copy. I'll normally discuss the copy and plan it before actually making the slide deck. I'll normally have it as just a markdown file before rendering it as an HTML file. But one thing that does really annoy me about Claude in particular, because I'm familiar with all the AI tales and that sort of thing, but Claude seems to have no sense, Claude Code, sorry, that is, no inherent sense of audience perspective, as in what an audience should see and what it shouldn't. So Claude will often include things like speaker notes, or what would normally be speaker notes on a presentation, in the actual slide. Like, I'm trying to think, like something like switch to the demo now in small text. Also, that's not the best one, but those sorts of things. And those are logical things that are kind of relevant in the overall process of planning the presentation and putting together a presentation and realizing when to switch and that sort of thing. But it is an area of judgment where Claude Code does not seem able to think about what an audience should see and what it shouldn't see. I have to say I find Codex is much better at that. Like in these, and so I guess one thing you just have to be aware of is, like, if you're making any skills or that sort of thing that creates slide decks or any kind of copy in that sense with Claude Code, I often tell it, be hyper aware of what the audience perspective is and only show them what they need to know. Don't include speaker notes or that sort of thing. I do also think I think Claude Code is quite bad at putting in like vacuous phrases as well in many cases. But not just the standard AI tells of like it's not this, it's that, but it's things that just don't really have any, and Codex is somewhat guilty of this as well. It doesn't seem to have the same sort of lapse of judgment in terms of what an audience sees or not, but a lot of phrases do become quite vacuous. I'm trying to think of some off the top of my head. No specific examples spring to mind, but I do find myself very often when writing copy and that sort of thing telling Claude Code or Codex like every sentence has to earn its place to be there, don't just include vacuous copy. And that's the thing, I'm not someone who believes that AI can't write at all. I believe that you can get AI writing to the point where it's largely or not, I wouldn't say largely indistinguishable from human writing, but to the point where it's not evidently written by AI, and certainly where it can actually imitate one's own voice quite well. The more context I find it has around that, the better. And also if you have a writing voice guide. But probably the most useful thing I've found is, rather than like just a long list of rules, and this is something I've been working on recently as well, because still from time to time it does annoy me, is examples either of your own work or some, exemplary piece. Well, sorry, that's a bit obvious if it's an example, but some ideal or aspirational piece of writing, and then you have to get a hypercritical sub-agent to review it. Whether you're using an example or a voice guide, you absolutely have to get a separate sub-agent to review it, I find, because otherwise it will just let those things lapse. Maybe this question isn't actually specifically about the outward-facing copy produced by Claude, but it's about the kind of conversation within Claude Code. And yeah, I feel like that's fair enough, but quite frankly, even if Claude Code is a little bit annoying in terms of what it's saying to you in the chat, that's not as consequential. And one thing I would just touch on again quickly is, although I do think that you can get AI to the point where it can handle a lot of writing and not sound like it's written by AI, I still do believe that at this point the ceiling for good human writing is far, far higher than AI currently. I think AI is getting better and better at writing, but particularly skilled copywriters, whether that's marketing copy or like newspaper or newspaper articles, those sorts of things are, in my opinion, more compelling reads than AI. And by all means, take some of what you consider the best marketing copy and feed it into Codex or Claude Code as examples against which sub-agent, and then have sub-agents compare its output against those and keep going over it until it improves it. I do find that gets better things, but it's still not absolutely perfect. And I know I've gone on about this for way too long, so maybe we'll only end up doing a couple questions today. But the other thing I'd say is, where I think you can get sort of the maximum leverage between maintaining sort of maximizing good to acceptable quality copy from AI, I think you can do that by driving the opinions yourself, because I don't think Claude Code and Codex are good at coming up with fantastic takes or opinions and that sort of thing at the moment still, but they can put reasonably well-formed opinions into a voice that is fairly close to how you would write, in my opinion. And so what that means is that if you want a kind of automated content system where, or not necessarily automated, but if you want to have a system where all you need to do is really be involved at the ideation stage, you can then create a content system for things like social media, like X articles, that sort of thing, where you can tell that a lot of them are AI written anyway. You can create a system that will kind of take your novel ideas and output them at a sufficient quality for those platforms, to the point where, in a kind of 80-20 sense, the productivity you gain from that is worth it, even if it's not your absolute highest quality, wittiest, most compelling writing, even if it's not going to get published in a newspaper or something like that. It can serve its purpose. And so that's kind of the system I'm building here as well, is that during the day these questions are found, put together, then what I do is I come and sit here for, well, who knows how long given all my ramblings, but like 20 minutes or so, and just sort of talk about these ideas. And then there's a whole content-waterfall system I'm working on with Codex, which isn't quite finished yet. And the idea is that then takes the actual novel so the opinions and stuff are my own. I give them very randomly, but then they're taken from the video, extracted, and then repurposed into a whole slate of additional content, like, well, obviously shorts from the video, but then stuff for X, stuff for LinkedIn, Instagram carousels, all of these things. And so that, I think, if you're someone who's sort of pressed for time, then you can certainly get it to where the only input required from you properly is your opinions, and you can create a pretty viable content system after that. So if it's the difference between doing no content and kind of pretty decent quality AI content, I'd say that's the kind of system where you want to optimize it. But if you want to write like extremely compelling sales copy or something like that, not that I'm an expert copywriter or by any means, I would suggest that, I don't know, I still think that you'd want to be quite heavily involved in that. And I'm not saying, and I would say have AI probably write it with you, but like really, nitpick and go over and correct it and that sort of thing with AI. So I've gone on for way too long about that question, but hopefully that gives some insights into my thoughts about AI writing, because I think it's one of my favoured areas to explore. Once you crack AI writing, that is like huge leverage, I think, and I still haven't cracked it fully yet, but that's the thing, because no one likes to read something that they think is written by AI. It just doesn't feel great. So if you can get past that, then it feels better. And one thing I might mention, I feel like one final thing I'll say on this is, if you get AI to be self-deprecating, I think it comes across as less AI. If you tell AI to write something along the lines of, I've had enough of seeing all these ChatGPT generated posts on my LinkedIn feed, so here's an actual post, is that a little bit disingenuous? So you kind of play a little bit of a psychological, playing some mind games there, getting AI to criticize itself maybe makes people think that it's not written by AI. Codex usage suddenly draining faster. This might be worth checking. I think this is the opposite of the case, actually. I believe there was a thing just like 2 days ago, or today, or yesterday, or something, saying that GPT 5.6 actually rewrote its own code to make it much faster and therefore cheaper. And I think the price of, I think it was GPT 5.6, I think it was Luna, went down loads in its pricing. I think it went down by 80% of its pricing or something, and even 5.6 Sol I think went down. I haven't checked out the news article in loads and loads of detail, but I think I think it's good. I've had Codex running all night, overnight, 2 nights ago and last night, and all day during the day today, trying to make a version of Watch Dogs, the video game, just to see what its potential is if I really push it, with a kind of loop that is constantly running. And I have not really felt my usage limits going down that fast. Anyway, so perhaps they have been draining faster, but I don't think so. I certainly do think, I've said it before and I will say it again, I think that the amount of usage you get out of Codex compared to Claude Code is really, really good. Like Claude Code, you can get loads of usage out of it as well, especially if you actually consider like the monetary value of the usage you get and how heavily subsidized it is. I think you get something like 8 to 10 grand's worth of credits, or tokens, for a $200 a month plan. And I don't know what the numerical value for using Codex is, but I just find that I almost never have usage limit issues with Codex, unless I do, as I have been doing this week, a lot of stuff on 5.6 Sol Ultra running for ages. Right, next question. This is exactly what I was just mentioning. This is the news article I was mentioning. The GPT 5.6 reduced its pricing. I suppose it kind of fits into the idea of recursive self-improvement and that sort of thing. And what I guess is that, or what I guess it's And I suppose it's exemplary of, I guess, like the compounding progress that we're going to experience as the models start getting faster and faster. Not just in producing smarter and smarter models. Sorry, I said faster and faster, I meant smarter and smarter. Not in just producing smarter and smarter models, but I think in all fields, you know, if GPT 5.6 is finding ways to reduce itself and make itself more efficient, then what does this mean for, you know, the future of energy? I think I read an FT art. I think it was the FT, some article a little while ago now, saying that perhaps, you know, the heavy energy investment into AI now will have kind of like a net positive effect on energy usage, as in becoming far more energy efficient over the next whatever decade, 2 decades, I don't know, because if we accelerate the intelligence of AI, we can then use those to find more efficient means of creating energy, you know, that sort of thing. By no means am I an expert in the field of energy at all, but I think this is, you know, I think this is an interesting example, though, of the sort of progress we will start seeing from AI in things like energy usage. And also, I guess it means it's just positive as well, the fact that GPT 5.6 is getting cheaper, because it's like the way that Opus 5 is essentially Fable 5 intelligence, more or less, at half the price. This is now GPT 5.6 level intelligence at 80% of the price. You know, we're kind of being spoiled in a way, in the sense that the level of intelligence in the models constantly going up, and then that kind of becomes eventually our new baseline and just starts getting cheaper and cheaper. Baseline's maybe the wrong word, but you know, if you think about it, like when Opus 4.8 came out, people were obviously, you know, amazed by it. Or I guess Opus 4.5 is probably a better example of a turning point. It was either 4.5 or 4.6 that came out like November 2025, and I feel like that's when everyone started to feel how powerful Claude Code was becoming. And now, if you had to go back to using 4.5 or 4.6, I think you'd be really upset, you know. So I guess we get spoiled a little bit and then become used to this new level of intelligence. But if you're just thinking about the macro for a moment, I've made this point before, but at some point, Fable 5, Opus 5, GPT 5.6 level intelligence will just become like very much the baseline, and think about what the top end will be at that point. So very exciting, the acceleration in model intelligence. What should the GUI for AI agents look like? I'm probably not going to go look at what this actually is, to be honest, but I do want to talk very quickly about like the user interface for AI agents, because it's something that interests me, and I feel like it's not totally ideal to be switching between all these, because I guess I don't necessarily have a definitive take on it, but it is something I've been trying to set up for myself, is my own kind of interface where I can have in a kind of Claude Code or Codex style. I guess my current idea is like various things of sort of project scoped folders, like folder scoped projects or general projects and that sort of thing, and then you can, like, within each project, rather than having to go like different apps of Codex, Claude Code, you know, switching between them, you can just have one unified interface that has them all, and then you can have agents in there as well, and then have panels for managing all your agents and seeing what's active. And I have to give a lot of credit to Jack Roberts, kind of for the inspiration and the idea, because it's very much inspired by his AI operating system, if that's what he calls it, which does sort of aggregate his Hermes agent, Claude Code, Codex, local models, open router or open router, you know, models using open router as well, and so I'm kind of in the process of trying to build my own thing based on his, and I do think that is what you want, is one interface I think what you want is essentially an interface with a few different things, basically like a kind of somewhere where you can monitor the tasks and like the backlog of tasks, somewhere where you can monitor your live agents, somewhere where you can interact directly with every running agent, much like you can in Claude Code or Codex, and then something where you can monitor like what's happening automated and what's happening in general. So I don't know, it's not exactly a totally innovative idea that I've just proposed, to be honest. I feel like that is the way most people design kind of custom AI agent monitoring or operating systems or dashboards. But yeah, I guess that's what I'm working on at the moment. But I don't actually know necessarily what the example given here is, but that's just some thoughts based on it. Why are recorded skills so slow? Yes, I know that there is a new feature that you can like screen record a skill and then screen record you doing something and then have Claude make it into a skill. I'll be honest, I haven't tried it out yet, so I can't necessarily comment on this. I know Nick Sarayev, when Fable 5 first came out, had it like watch him work, screen record him or screenshot him, I think, and then suggest things like that. So possibly a little bit dystopian, being constantly monitored by your AI agent and then told how to improve, but I think it's quite cool, and I do think that is probably only going to get better in terms of proactive suggestions from AI, like telling you how to improve things and improve your setup. But I can't comment necessarily on whether or not screen recorded skills are slow. What do you do when Codex Plus isn't enough but Pro feels like overkill? I'll be honest, when 5.6 Sol came out, I did upgrade to the max plan on Codex, or whatever they call it technically, and I have found it really, really worth it from my own experience. I know I keep saying it time and again, but I am absolutely loving Codex recently. Don't get me wrong, I still love Claude Code, but there's just something about Codex with 5.6 Sol. I just really, really like it. I don't know quite what it is. I think it's a mixture of speed and I just like the app experience, especially, as I've said, I do loads of remote work on my phone using Codex, which is working locally on my laptop, even though I'm away from my laptop and I'm driving it from my phone, and I just prefer the phone experience for Codex over Claude Code at the moment. So I'd say I would recommend upgrading to the top tier Codex plan, to be honest, if you use Codex a lot. I don't know if I'd recommend it as your single one over Claude Code. If I had to pick one between Claude Code and Codex, I feel like the intelligence of Fable 5 and possibly Opus 5 is just ever so slightly edges out for GPT 5.6, so I'd probably go with Claude Code, but I'd still say that Codex at the top tier is absolutely worth it. Okay, so I think that probably wraps it up for today. I've gone on for way too long again, but if you did enjoy, please feel free to subscribe. Come back tomorrow for another episode. Thanks for watching, and yeah, as I mentioned at the start, if you're interested in seeing how AI can fit into your business and you'd like to work with me, please check out the links in the description, or if you'd like to join our school community, also please check out the links in the description. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.